Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Joe Mullings, the CEO of the Mullings Group. Good afternoon, Joe.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You know, in spite of everything, I'm doing actually extraordinarily well.
Yeah, me too. Actually, we finally have some nice weather here in the Bay Area. So I actually walked down to the Bay about an hour ago.
Down in Palm Beach. So we're Palm Beach, Florida, and we're having similar weather today. Neither of us can complain about that probably just about ever.
Yeah, I never complained about the weather in San Francisco. I agree with you. I came from Buffalo, New York, so I have never complained. 20 years, it's always been nice here.
But there's, you know, let's not forget the 5 microclimates that you have there in the Bay Area too.
Yes, but I'm in one of the really nice ones. So I'm next to the Bay, but down south, so we don't get the fog.
Yeah.
So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the talent access business, talent headhunter, as you call it. Mm-hmm. But for 30 years, we're the #1 search firm in the world in the medical device industry. Our firm has made more than 7,000 placements in that, and primarily on the tech side of things. Do a lot of work in the Bay Area, do a lot of work on the digital data, software, telehealth, telepresence. And I'd say about 80% of our business is around the med tech startups.
Oh, wow. So there is a lot of that here, just up a little bit north of me in South San Francisco. Yeah. So what has been your experience with remote employment, both in all aspects of it? Did you have quite a varied background?
So look, I'm going to fall outside the PC side of work remote and virtual. If you're really building a business and you're really building a core business, I think there's efficiencies lost. Now, don't get me wrong. I think being remote has its value, but I also think that right now, quite honestly, the remote world is sort of like the people who thought that if they made their hobby their livelihood, that they start to hate their hobby. Mm-hmm. I will tell you the number of conversations that I have had with people who romantically think working remote was the best, are jonesing to get back to their work, family, the camaraderie, the chit chat that happens there. And personally, and again, you know, this is a little provocative and I tend to go there. I don't think the stay-at-home work people have done themselves any favors by having their cat laying on their keyboard and take a picture of it, by having the golden retriever laying on the couch with them while they're trying to work and take a picture of it, or running around outside during clearly work hours with the kid on a zip and go and took pictures of it, are doing themselves any favors. Just my opinion.
Yeah, well, no, that's valid. I think I have seen some similar types of things, and it is interesting. And I actually think that after this is all over, I think it's going to be more of a hybrid model. I think people have gotten to like that they can do it once or twice a week, and I think that's what it will go to.
I would agree. I'll lean in on that. Would I have, if somebody came to me 6 months ago and said, "Hey, Joe, you mind if I work from home 1 day a week?" I'd want to understand why. Mm-hmm. Now, I run a sales organization, and when my salespeople don't work, they don't get paid. Mm-hmm. So I'd always remind them of that: are you going to work as hard from home as you do from the office? But then I also have a lot of creatives, right, who do editing, web page development. You know, if they want to work from home and there's a real good reason for it, I'd probably be a little more permissive now, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And I think one of the things here that we've noticed in the Bay Area especially is it's had a change in the quality of life, because the traffic situation, I mean, the week before the shutdown, Apple, Google, and Facebook all told their employees to work from home. And everybody in the Bay Area noticed the difference.
Of course they did. Yeah,
because, you know, it didn't take an hour to get into the office anymore.
Listen, I spent a couple years out there right on Google's campus. I had built out one of their biggest projects on the robotics side of things. So it was a joint effort between J&J, Johnson & Johnson, and Google, a company called Verb Surgical. And we were right on in the Mountain View campus. Actually, I believe I was told in the very building, the first server sat in. Oh. And the traffic patterns out there are absolutely insane. Mm-hmm. So look, if working from home, I think Google has the air-conditioned buses with the Wi-Fi in them that they bring people in from the city. Listen, I get that. But if you don't want to come in because of you just want to sit at home, it basically means you want to work a little less. And again, that's a little provocative, and it's not the PC thing to say. But I think it goes by company culture as well. We're 35 people. We're going to be 100 within a year.
Oh, wow.
And so we're driving hard, and every single day that somebody's out of the pocket, I don't want to have to fill them in on something that happened in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of an expanding bullpen, because they decided that they felt like they wanted to work from home. So that's my take on this. It's not going to be popular, but there are going to be entrepreneurs that are going to shake their head and say, thanks for saying that.
Yeah. So, and are all of your employees in the Palm Beach area?
Yes. We are, again, the most successful search firm in the world in med tech, and we've had people call in and say they want to work for us, and they asked if they'd be able to do it from another location, and the answer always is no.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
No, that might change. I don't know, but that wouldn't have changed a month ago.
Right, and it's funny. I talked to a gentleman that had the exact same feelings as you 6 weeks ago, and now he's like, but he's also in the Bay Area, so it has changed his life. Right? Yep. And he's noticed the difference in quality of life, and he says he's more productive.
Again, I think it's right. By case basis. And, are you more productive at home? No, not in my business. Absolutely not. 100%.
Right.
Does it add some freedoms or balance in your life? Depends on what your definition of balance is, right? So I want to make sure I go at that is, my definition of balance is entirely different than a majority of people out there. And I would also say that the definition of the people in my organization balance is a little different, because our interview process is 9 gates. To get an opportunity to work at this firm is rare, but the rewards from professional personal development, economics, etc., there's a price to pay.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we certainly understand that in Silicon Valley. So, well, what do you think is the future of remote employment? And now that you've been forced into it, basically.
Well, I think it's interesting. And I do think the future of sort of virtual employment is going to have an impact in certain markets, such as real estate. I think it's going to drive down the need for certain real estate in the office park space. So I think real estate's going to fill it there. I think, though, on the other side, as you look at the market cap of Zoom and those other telepresence virtual tools, I think that provides a tremendous opportunity. So when I think about virtual or telepresence, I don't think of it from the business owner's perspective. I think of it from the business opportunity perspective. So then if I have a business, I am not thinking about Susie, Bob, or Johnny in the bullpen or here. I'm thinking about, how do I index my business towards those future-facing opportunities that are going to double down and triple down on the virtual, all the telepresence side. That's where I think the future lies.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, it was interesting to see what Zoom did that first week. They had some growing pains, and they had to fix their security paradigm pretty quickly, right? And then there are other technologies coming out. There's people building them as we speak.
Absolutely. And look, hats off to Zoom. And it's the same thing with our government right now, not being political at all here, is there's preparation to something and then there's response. So was Zoom prepared for that? No way, Jose. Neither was our government in regards to trying to manage this situation. What you have to look at, and you have to applaud with Zoom, is their response to the scenario. And so that gives you a potential peek into the strength and the leadership of the organization. Now, is going to be a second follow-up to the people who are potentially going to put Zoom out of business, have an unfair advantage? Yeah, I don't think anybody, because of a subscription model, is going to, have an issue with Zoom. But like all digital platforms, winner takes all. So it'll be really interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they get acquired by someone, because they are.
No, not if, what the price is.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it.
Not.
This is true. So what is the story behind the Mullings Group, and what's the journey been like?
Hmm. So this firm started in January 1992. We first started out as an executive search firm. And we really were very dominant in that space and continue to be dominant in that space as a search firm for our first 22, 23 years. About 5.5 years ago, we got hired by Google and Johnson & Johnson to perform a major technical hiring lift in the Bay Area, about 300 professionals, and they wanted people from Tesla and competitors and Apple and other companies like that, Facebook, LinkedIn on the software side. And, you know, classic headhunting is a very analog relationship. One phone call, one point of contact, conversation, done, not scalable. Mm-hmm. And what Google and J&J wanted was something that was going to happen very quickly, high quality, high pedigree, high experience. We had to come up with a digital solution that declared itself as a media company. So I, with no experience, and my team, we put together a world-class media company, production company, and I'm sitting in it now. We've got about 5,000 square foot of high-end production space, professionals from the industry who shot World Cup, who were on network TV, who have done documentaries, and we started to create a full production company called Dragonfly Stories. We have our own docuseries, and it all revolves around the medtech life science space. And so now we happen to be a media company who happens to do search and medtech versus a medtech search firm who dabbles in media. And so, you know, we've got 35 employees and growing very rapidly, revenue growing very, very rapidly. And beside being talent access, meaning interim, consulting, and full-time, we also now are hired to create hiring narrative branding around organizations, because most of the time organizations have terrible hiring brand narratives. They have product branding that's good, and they have corporate, you know, feel-good videos that nobody watches. So now we get hired by organizations to hold up the 3 tent poles of building startups is branding, awareness and attention, and talent. And that's what our firm does.
Cool. And on a personal note, I can tell you my daughter started at Google 2 years ago. So maybe she saw some of your work. And interestingly, the day she started, it was on a Monday. They had 200 new employees that day. And they said, that's pretty common. Every Monday, about 200 new employees start at Google.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. I mean, when I started working there with them, like I said, 5.5 years ago, I think it was, sitting in with their meetings, sitting in with the execs, listening to the brainstorming and how they looked at opportunities, I can understand why some real high-level thinking comes out of that ecosystem, because it taught me to look at things entirely different than I had for the previous 25 years.
Yeah, no, I agree. Actually, one of my former jobs, I did an integration with Google. We actually, the company I work for, we sold them some of their original traffic data for their traffic product. And it was amazing to go there, and it was just different. That's probably the best way to describe it. Yeah, and it was quite interesting. Yeah, I had a good time. So the current pandemic has forced a lot of companies to go remote, including yourself, and you clearly prefer not to be that way. What roadblocks and challenges did that present for you?
Well, it happened suddenly, right? So it was a cliff. It wasn't like, hey, next month we're going to. You know, fortunately for our business, all of our customers are remote. So operating in a remote fashion, so we weren't like a retail or hospitality where customer was in front of you and you needed to be in front of the customer. So us going remote was sort of transparent to the customer base. But since we have work teams, and you know, you're interacting with part of a production company, sitting with a lead editor, dealing with a client, having 2 people on the search team, we had to figure out that cadence. We're a very high-tech company as it was anyway. So, you know, people basically cleaned off their desks, took their laptops, took their desktops, moved them all home. It's a very tight team. The cohesiveness and the ability to work together is incredibly dynamic. So they transitioned really well.
Hmm.
From a revenue perspective, we're right on the number,
Hmm.
right on the number that we would have been
Oh,
without COVID. I don't know if there's any other search firms that could actually say that. Um, COVID is a huge opportunity for us because we are healthcare, life science, med tech. So all the diagnostics, biotech, med tech, all that's going to be propping up the world moving forward, not just our country, is robust. So we transitioned into it pretty well because of our infrastructure and how we were designed.
well,
Others who are friends in the business, not so well because, again, it was a cliff.
yeah, it was. It really didn't affect me. I've worked from home for 10 years, off and on, and some of them have been hybrid models too. I will be honest with that. So yeah, but a lot of companies I've talked to have struggled with it because they just weren't ready. And one of the big things was security.
Hmm?
A lot of companies didn't have VPNs and things like that set up.
Yeah, that's a whole nother. I've got friends who are in the mortgage business, work for Chase, work for some of the
Mhm.
other companies and healthcare industries, transmitting data to your point, health records, et cetera, over non-secured lines.
Oh,
That becomes a major liability issue. But then if you're in the middle of saving a life, which outweighs
right.
which?
Yes.
And then travel. So we do a lot of face-to-face travel. I probably do 250,000 miles a year.
Ooh.
That has been, absolutely reduced to zero.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think, though, that we'll have more face-to-face like this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it won't replace it 100%, but something tells me that we've now realized you can have a intimate relationship via telepresence more so than had this not happened.
Yeah, I think this was coming, and I think it accelerated it. And I think people are now more comfortable with it. So now they'll weigh the pros and cons of things like, do I get on an airplane and go to San Francisco, right,
Right.
for a 1 hour meeting?
Correct.
Maybe
Which I did all the time.
right, which maybe not. You won't do it for a 1 hour meeting, but if you're going to have a 2 day session, that's worth getting on a plane for.
Correct. And I think what you're going to see too is while I'm here in a full-blown studio with, high-end cameras and high-end gear and high-end switching board because it's my business model. What I do think you're going to find is while the laptop camera will be convenient, but like everything else, our iPhones included, the quality of the equipment, the quality of the environment around going back and forth with somebody, you'll start to see telerooms with $20, $30, $40,000 price tags on it.
Mm-hmm.
In order to make sure the experience is incredibly enhanced. And that will be the differentiation from winning a contract sometimes meant showing up on the front door. Now what I think you're going to see is how do you impress people with how you present to them in a teleworld.
Mm-hmm.
That also going to be a very big business. And the early adopters who bring in kick-ass gear and kick-ass experience, it will consciously or unconsciously influence the decision maker on the other side of the camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. I think like places, I'll look at Regus and Upwork and places like that. I'll bet you they do set up studios for that exact reason.
Yeah.
And
Or corporations will be smart enough to drop 40 grand in their own, $2 million law firm
mm-hmm.
and will win more business because of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Wow. So there's companies like Gaper that help develop, build, and scale products for companies of all sizes. What do you think is the future of that for companies that need to hire someone right now, especially with the specific credentials that they need?
I think the interim business, some people call it contract 1099. I call it the interim business. I think the interim business, the talent on demand business, is probably one of the biggest opportunities moving forward. And here's why. First of all, the individual lands on the balance sheet differently. So it's an expense. It's not an FTE. So you got anywhere, depending on what state you're in, from a 20 to 28% cost carry that you no longer have to carry. So that's one. Two is never before have really good people been let go in mass.
Mm-hmm.
So typically in the past, it's been like, they're a consultant. Well, it's a fancy name for unemployed or can't be employed in some cases.
Right.
And I also think you're going to see businesses come out. There are going to be talent agents for a stable of really good people. So think of it like talent agents in professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
They represent 20 or 30 people. and they manage those contracts. They set them up for their next gig. They make sure that they're marketed properly on LinkedIn and or with PR firms. I do believe that there's a new business category that comes out for those that want to live the interim career path that will manage those relationships on behalf of 20 or 30 amazingly talented people that will set them up for their next gig, make sure they're comped properly, make sure they're staying out in the public domain with their skill sets and accomplishments. And the beauty about that is, as a 1099, the employer cannot tell you what you can or cannot put out in the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
A brand new category of talent access, talent on demand, that we've started that business. That's why I know so much about it. We have just kicked that off in our firm.
Very interesting. And are you concentrating on the med tech field or all fields?
Med tech field. Only med tech, because about 70% of our book are emerging tech startups. So those companies need a $400,000 a year CFO skill set, but can only afford 100. Right. So what do? They bring them in a day and a half a week. They need a chief medical officer right now for where they are. Bring her in a day and a half a week. You're still getting the high level talent, the experience, the pedigree, but you're only talent on demand. You're dialing it in when you need it.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's what we concentrate on. I mean, we find that, I mean, our goal is to find the top 1% of developers from all over the world. And that's what we make available to people, right?
Take it a step further though. What if you get a contract with those top 1%ers and you say, well, how are you marketing yourself when you're working? Or are you just taking what comes up next? Wouldn't you like to have 3, 4, or 5 of those ready for you?
Yeah.
And you and me, I manage that, their new team they're going to, because their free agency is coming up. That right there, and the companies will pay for it. And the individuals may pay an annual fee for you to manage their careers. That is a category historically going to be correct on this. Play this tape back in a year.
I actually think you're right about that. We actually are right now doing a push on female developers, because it's a rarity, and they, you know, to market them, there's a lot of people that really want to hire female technical people.
Right.
So
and they want to hire really good people, and they want you to find the female good people. Right. Yeah. That's really what it is. Right. At the end of the day.
Right. Yes. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and I'm a little bit biased because my daughter is in technology, but
my staff is 60% female because they're just better.
Yeah, and I agree. So well, the way we look at it is, who's ever the best person for the job. I don't care if they're male or female, right?
Right. And then best person. Hold on. Then let's look at it. It's like an NFL combine. Best person: empathy, intelligence, patience, communication. Female. And skill-wise, as good. So, you know, best athlete, combine score, I'm going with the female every time.
Really? Yeah. I think the NFL might disagree with that, but seeing how there are none of them in the NFL.
I'm talking about building businesses.
Yes, no, I agree with you on that. So Joe, this has really been fascinating. I love your take on a lot of these topics, and I think you're right on a lot of them. And I want to thank you for your time today. It's been fascinating.
You bet. My pleasure. And thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for being so forward thinking as well.
Oh, thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. Be well.